I made a vow with Paul to be each other's one and only for life, only to discover after I died that everything had been nothing more than a story in some period novel. I loved him with a frantic, all-consuming devotion, while Paul, for his part, loved Jenna, the heroine, all his life. At the lake, he was the one who pulled Jenna ashore, but to protect his reputation, he insisted he had saved only me. And while I lay unconscious, he destroyed my innocence. He married me, but then emptied out our household. When Jenna went to the city to study, I rolled up my bedding and followed after her, weary and dusty. When she showed off expensive new things, bought with pawned jewelry, I rubbed the rusted wedding band on my finger again and again, telling myself it was good enough to have one at all. But in the end, Paul even took the money meant for our daughter's heart surgery to cover the losses from Jenna's failed research. That was when I finally broke. Only then did I realize Paul had never loved me. In despair, I clutched my daughter and fainted. When I opened my eyes, I was back 10 years earlier, the very year Jenna was preparing to go to college in the city, and my newlywed husband Paul was eager to take all our savings and rush them to her. I woke, hit my head hard on the cabinet, and pressed my hand to my spinning head. When I stood up, I was met with young Paul's furious face. "No matter what you say today, I'm taking this money to Jenna." In his hand was a thick envelope stuffed with the savings both our families had scraped together for our wedding, meant to build up our new home, along with our household's grain and meat ration coupons. It wasn't just his, it was mine too. And yet, he shamelessly prepared to hand it all over to Jenna. I remembered how in my last life I had begged him to at least leave some food behind. My parents were already old, and now that we were married, we couldn't keep depending on them. But what did he say? "Jenna is an intellectual, not a farm girl like you. She'll achieve greatness and do research that benefits humanity. She just needs a bit of help right now. If you stop me, you're blocking a rising scientist." With that, he ignored me, bleeding from where my head had struck the cabinet, slammed the door, and hurried out. At the gate, he carefully handed the thick envelope to Jenna, who was waiting there. I crumpled onto the floor, tears blurring my eyes as I watched my husband rush toward another woman without the slightest hesitation. Not far away, I heard Jenna's coquettish, dissatisfied voice outside the yard. "What took you so long? Did your wife say no?" Facing her, Paul shed his impatience and smiled as warmly as the sun. "Of course not, she doesn't get to decide for me. I'm giving you the money willingly." Jenna instantly bristled at his wording. "What do you mean, giving?" "I'm only borrowing it. Once I succeed, I'll pay you back double. I'm not someone who takes advantage of others for nothing." Yes, you're right," he said quickly. "Then let me congratulate you in advance on becoming a great scientist." Listening to the two of them flirt as they walked off together, I could only laugh bitterly. Never takes advantage, never accepts unearned favors. How shamelessly she had built such a saintly image for herself. Ever since she had been sent down to the countryside, Paul had treated her like a precious jewel, sending every good thing her way and shouldering every bad thing for her. When my grandmother was alive, she knew I loved the handmade candy she made. Every year for my birthday, she would prepare a big bag for me to save her slowly. Even in her old age and poor health, she worked herself ragged to make piles of sesame candy and dried sweet potatoes, just to surprise me. She knew she might not live another year, and she only wanted to do a little more for me while she still could. Grandma still worried about my marriage to Paul. She knew I had loved him since childhood and treated him like half a grandson. After making those treats, she told me to send half to Paul. But the next day, I saw those very things in Jenna's hands. When she went out to the fields, she would snack on them casually, and when she couldn't finish, she tossed the rest by the roadside. She treated what I cherished as a treasure, like nothing more than garbage. I went up to her and demanded, "Why are these things with you? Weren't they the ones I gave Paul?" Everyone's eyes turned toward Jenna, and she ran off in shame and anger. That night, Paul came storming over to blame me. "Emma, it was just a few lousy dried sweet potatoes. Did you really have to humiliate Jenna in front of everyone like that? I was the one who gave them to her, so stop picking on him. I'm warning you, tomorrow you're going to apologize to him in front of everyone, or our engagement is over." I couldn't understand. Those things were what my grandmother had made for me, and Paul knew it. How could he pass them on to Jenna? Didn't he realize they carried my grandmother's love? I was overwhelmed with grievance under Paul's scolding, but in the end, I obeyed. The next day, just as he ordered, I apologized to Jenna in front of everyone. The only reason was simple. I cared too much about Paul. I was terrified he would break off the engagement, terrified he wouldn't want me anymore, and it didn't stop there. After we were married, Paul didn't restrain his feelings for Jenna. He only grew more excessive. At our wedding, Jenna had sourly asked, "Paul, once you're married, you won't stop spending time with me, right? You're the only one I talk to in this village. If you ignore me too, I'll be left all alone." He was handsome, and when he first came down to the countryside, many people wanted to befriend him. But he looked down on everyone, thinking these villagers weren't good enough for him. Even the other educated youths who had come with him, he despised for not being as cultured as he was. He grew close to Paul for two reasons. First, because Paul was loyal and easy to use, and second, because Paul was the village head's son, attractive and well-regarded. Being close to Paul gave Jenna an immense sense of superiority. Everyone in the village knew Paul treated Jenna better than he treated me, his newlywed wife. Most of the money he earned went into Jenna's hands. Every few days, he would bring vegetables or meat to her home. After being criticized for improper conduct, he simply switched to doing it in secret. As his wife in name only, I became nothing but a laughing stock, and Jenna never once cared that Paul was married. She accepted all his gifts, all his favors, with a clear conscience. Whenever we crossed paths in the village, she looked at my pale face with an expression that mixed pity with pride. Over time, many of these things blurred in memory. But what I hated most was how, in my last life, Paul took the money, meant to save our daughter's life, and gave it to Jenna. That choice led to both me and my daughter losing our lives. Thinking of it, my hand clenched hard against the ground, and the hatred in my eyes burned so fiercely I could tear them to pieces. No wonder I could never win Paul's attention. He had always been hopelessly devoted to Jenna. I was nothing but a disposable pawn, destined to be trampled under their feet. But why should I be the one condemned to suffer? Now that I had been given a second chance, I refused to keep living in humiliation. Just like before, Paul and Jenna, carefree after taking the money, were chatting about where to go have fun. In my previous life, I had trailed behind them, shrinking back as I watched their figures grow smaller in the distance, too afraid to stop them. This time, I pushed myself up from the ground and rushed forward, blocking their path. In their astonished eyes, I saw the reflection of my disheveled state. My clothes covered in dirt, my forehead split and bleeding. "Jenna, give me back the money," I said firmly, stretching my hand straight toward her. Jenna immediately shoved the envelope into her pocket and held it tight, terrified I might snatch it away. "Why should I? Paul gave it to me." Then she turned to him with a pitiful look. "Paul, didn't you say you make the decisions in your household? What's your wife doing now?" Paul hadn't expected me to stand up to them like this. His eyes filled with disgust as he snapped at me. "Emma, what are you making a scene for? As head of this household, don't tell me I can't even touch the money in this house." Paul snapped. "Didn't I make myself clear just now?" I said coldly, "You say you gave her money for some grand reason. Don't twist this with dirty excuses and act like your motives for supporting Jenna are so noble." I stayed calm as I argued back. "If you want to give her your own money, that's up to you. But this envelope doesn't just contain yours. It holds my share too. I worked for that money with my own sweat. What right do you have to take it away? What right do you have to lend it to her?" Paul froze. Most of the time, I had always been obedient and adoring. He had taken it for granted that my money and his were all his to use freely, never bothering to ask my opinion. Faced with my challenge now, he stammered, "We're husband and wife, what's yours is mine. How can you be so petty, nitpicking with me?" I ignored his protest, pulled the envelope straight out of Jenna's pocket, carefully counted out the portion that belonged to me, and tucked it back into my own pouch. Then I looked straight at Paul and sneered. "You really are quite the man, aren't you?" My words dripped with irony, leaving both of them flustered. Jenna's thin skin couldn't stand it. She stomped her foot and ran off. Paul, anxious, went chasing after her, but before leaving, he frowned and gave me a complicated look. I didn't care about the two of them. I went back inside, sat down, and carefully calculated the division of the money, then placed it in a separate pouch and stored it away neatly and securely. That afternoon, I went to my own family's home. Since childhood, I had only my father and my grandmother. My father and Paul's father had been close friends. Years ago, when they were working out of town, a fire broke out in the dormitory. My father gave up his own chance to escape so Paul's father could survive. Because of that sacrifice, he returned safely to the village, and later even became the village head. By then, Grandma was old and in poor health, and the only person she worried about was me. Before she passed away, she swallowed her pride and called Paul's family over. She used the fact that her son had saved their lives to beg them to treat me well. At the time, they promised beautifully, especially Paul's father, who swore he would treat me like his own daughter, not just a daughter-in-law. Paul's mother also swore she would cherish me like the apple of her eye. But what came of those promises? In the end, they treated me with cold indifference. Whenever Paul wronged me in our marriage, his father turned a blind eye. His mother told me to be generous, not to quibble with my husband. She constantly lectured me to be a good woman, devoted to Paul, and kept her eyes fixed on my stomach as if I were a hen whose only purpose was to lay eggs. In the first 2 years, Paul refused to be close to me, and when my belly stayed flat, his family's attitude shifted. They became harsher toward me. Later, when I finally gave birth to a daughter, the moment they saw she was a girl, they lost even the last trace of warmth. Looking at the memorial tablets of my father and grandmother, I couldn't help but feel both bitter and heartbroken. How I wished I could tell my father that the man whose life he saved had become the very one to crush me. If my father could live again, I would beg him never to save that ungrateful man in that fire. Then I lit incense for the daughter I had lost in my past life. No one had come to see her when she was born. Paul's family never liked her, not even Paul himself. But I loved her with all my heart. To me, she was heaven's gift. I could still remember the stabbing agony of holding her as her life slipped away in my arms, pain so sharp that tore through every fiber of my body. Even in my final moment, I felt like I had died of heartbreak. Staring silently at the curling incense smoke, I thought to myself, in this life, our fate is severed. I will not continue my path with Paul, and I will not bring that child into this world again. Looking at the faces of my father and grandmother, I reminded myself all the more firmly that I must leave Paul behind. If they were still alive, I knew they would want me to live well. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life tangled up in people this rotten. If Paul wanted to grovel at Jenna's feet like some lovesick fool, then he could go right ahead. But I wasn't going to play the pitiful supporting role anymore. Maybe it was because I had already died once, but I no longer felt bound or trapped. I no longer carried that blind obsession with Paul. In my past life, I had sunk into self-pity, swallowing every grievance and suffering in silence. Looking back now, all it left me with was a bitterness that clogged my chest. This time around, I refused to let myself live in humiliation again. I stood outside the Parker family's gate, already thinking about how I should confront Mr. Parker about the compensation money owed for my father's death. Years ago, when my father passed away, the factory had paid out a sum. I was still too young, and Grandma was too old and frail to handle it, so Paul's father, being my dad's so-called best friend, went to collect it on our behalf. But later, I learned the ugly truth. He had skimmed off a portion for himself. Seeing our family had only an old woman and a child, he thought we were easy to deceive and pocketed a large share. If Paul hadn't drunkenly let it slip in my last life, I might never have known how shameless his father really was. I knocked on the door. It was Mrs. Parker who answered. Seeing me alone, she asked impatiently, "Where's Paul? Why didn't he come with you?" "He went out with Jenna," I replied. The moment she heard that, her eyes rolled back in fury. "What? Again with that little fox? Why didn't you stop him? I thought once he married you, you'd be able to keep him in line. Turns out you're useless." In Mrs. Parker's eyes, Jenna was nothing but trouble. Too pretty, too flashy, and too bold and sticking close to Paul, even though she knew he was engaged. Now word had spread that Jenna had been accepted to college and would soon leave the village. Mrs. Parker hated it even more. She knew Jenna would never stay content in the countryside, so why was she still messing with her son? What Mrs. Parker wanted was a woman willing to serve Paul wholeheartedly and bear children to carry on their family line. Not some spoiled city girl whose ambitions reached higher than the sky. Back then when Mrs. Parker used to scold Jenna in front of me, I had thought she was genuinely on my side, standing up for me. Only later did I realize she simply saw me as easy to bully, the ideal daughter-in-law, because I fit her mold of a beautiful servant. I frowned and snapped back. Paul's legs are his own. How am I supposed to tie him down? And besides, if scolding worked, you've been at it for years. Did that ever stop him from flirting with Jenna? You don't blame your son for chasing after her. You don't blame Jenna for deliberately enticing him, and instead you blame me for not controlling him. What sense does that make? Her face froze, her brows knitting tight, and then she burst out shouting, "You insolent girl. How dare you talk back to your mother-in-law?" She raised her hand, ready to slap me, but I wasn't about to stand there stupidly like in my last life, waiting for the blow to land. I dodged sideways, and she stumbled badly, falling onto the ground with a twisted back. "Oh, my poor back," she cried out. Mrs. Lee Parker had always spoiled Paul. Whenever he lazed around and refused to work in the fields, she took his place, then came back to handle the housework too. Over the years, her back injury worsened, and in the past, I had always been the only one patient enough to rub medicine into it, worrying over her pain. But now, I only gave her a cold glance, didn't offer a hand, and walked straight inside to find Mr. Parker, leaving her wailing and cursing behind me. I found him lounging in a rocking chair, smoking, relaxed as could be. He had heard the argument just now. There was no way he hadn't, but he hadn't lifted a finger, so long as it didn't touch his own interests. He never bothered to get involved. I smiled faintly and got straight to the point. "Dad, a few days ago, I happened to run into one of my father's old co-workers from the factory. He told me the compensation money paid out after my father's death was quite a large sum. But when it got to me and Grandma, it was nowhere near what he described. Isn't that strange?" At my words, Mr. Parker shot up from the rocking chair. "What are you implying?" His voice trembled slightly with panic. "I handed that money to your grandmother with my own 2 hands. There were several witnesses back then, so what exactly are you trying to deny now?" I looked straight at him, at the guilty flicker in his eyes, and I almost laughed. How foolish my father had been, giving his life for a man like this. "Sure, you gave us money," I said evenly, "but was it the full amount?" "Untouched. You yourself admitted there were villagers present at the time. Conveniently, one of my father's old co-workers still lives nearby. Why don't we call everyone together and see whether there was a mistake in what you handed over? I had only one goal, to get back what was rightfully mine, and then leave this filthy place. Give me what you owe, and I'll keep my mouth shut. But if you refuse, once the others come, we'll see what happens to your reputation and your position as village chief." Mr. Parker's lips trembled with anger at my threat. He never expected me, the girl he thought of as meek and soft, to catch him so off guard. After turning it over in his mind, he decided he'd rather hand over some of his private savings than risk losing the villagers' trust or worse, his seat as chief. He gave me a sum of money. I weighed its thickness in my hand. It was plenty, maybe even more than I'd expected. I smiled faintly, said nothing more, and walked out. I didn't care whether he or Mrs. Parker ever looked at me kindly again. All I wanted was to gather enough money quickly and get out of here. The only comfort I had was that Paul and I had only held a wedding ceremony in the village. He had always resisted the idea of registering our marriage officially. In my past life, he only relented when I became pregnant, forced to marry me legally for the sake of responsibility. What had once broken my heart now felt like my biggest relief, because this time I could leave whenever I wanted and no one could stop me. As I passed the doorway, Mrs. Parker was still sitting on the ground, glaring at me with venom, muttering curses I didn't even bother to catch. Just the sight of her hateful face made my anger flare again, reminding me of how, in my last life, she had spat that my daughter was just a useless girl, born unlucky. Rage surged inside me. I stepped forward and, taking advantage of her weakness, gave her a hard kick. "You're the unlucky one, old hag. One day you'll rot in bed with no one left to care for you." In my last life, that was exactly what happened. When she finally became paralyzed in her old age, the husband she'd controlled all her life finally broke free, running off to dance with other old women. Paul was too busy faunting over Jenna to bother with me or our daughter. And as for Mrs. Parker, she was left entirely in my care. I had worked myself like a beast of burden, tending to her every day, changing her soiled clothes, enduring her curses that I was useless, that I couldn't even hold on to my own husband. This life, I swore, I would never serve her again. When she ended up bedridden, who would change her diapers then? Kicking her left me feeling fresh and unburdened. I walked away with my head high while she, consumed with fury, remained on the ground until dusk, when her husband finally grew hungry enough to help her up so she could cook for him. I walked down the road with the money pressed close against my chest. The cut on my forehead throbbed faintly. I touched it and felt that the blood had already dried, then headed toward the village clinic. In the glow of sunset, I happened to see Paul pedaling a shiny new bicycle. Jenna perched on the back, laughing as they rode off together. The sight of that bicycle pulled me back into memories of my past life. When news spread that Paul and I were about to be married, many villagers had come to offer their congratulations. But some, jealous that I was marrying the village chief's son, couldn't resist snide remarks. "You don't have much of a dowry. Your family's poor and shabby. Do you really think the Parkers will value you?" It was true that after my father's death, the pillar of our household was gone, and life for Grandma and me had grown more and more difficult. Our betrothal, arranged when we were children, had survived only because my father once saved Mr. Parker's life. Otherwise, they might not have hesitated to cancel it. Hearing such blatant mockery back then had left my face burning with embarrassment. But I had forced myself to reply stubbornly, "The Parkers treat me well. They don't care about those things." Hi. Who would believe that? Someone had snared. If the village chief's son hadn't saved you when you fell in the water, they never would have brought up that engagement again. Just wait. You'll suffer once you marry into that family. Even though the Parkers had gone through the motions of preparing the wedding, everything had been simple, done on the cheap. From the start, it was clear they didn't truly value me. Even the basic formalities were complete. Back then, I was so foolish. To make it seem like Paul cared about me, like he really loved me, I worked myself ragged to earn more work points. Even using the living expenses, Grandma gave me to buy a wristwatch and a sewing machine. I told everyone those were gifts from Paul, proof that he cherished me. Later, when I saw a bicycle at the Parker home, I was overjoyed. I threw my arms around Paul's waist, tears streaming down my face. "Paul, how did you know?" A bicycle was the only thing missing. "I'm so happy." The handsome man in my embrace stiffened, but he didn't correct me. At the time, I didn't understand his silence. It was only later that I realized I never once sat on the back of that bike. Jenna, though, rode it hundreds of times. That bicycle had been bought for her all along. I had been stupid enough to think he bought it for me, to complete my dowry of 3 must-haves and 1 want. One night, I had a terrible stomach ache and begged Paul to take me to the clinic on his bicycle. Not only did he refuse, he sneered, "Aren't you so tough? It's only a few steps from here to the clinic. You can walk. This bike is for Jenna. I won't let you ride it." I still remember that moonlit night, clutching my stomach, walking slowly down the empty village road, my face wet with silent tears. Now, the scene repeated itself before my eyes. Paul was riding that same bicycle, Jenna clinging to his waist, but my face was expressionless, my heart unmoved. I no longer cared whether I could sit on his bike or not. Paul's eyes flickered when they met mine, and with Jenna's arms still around his waist, he suddenly panicked, braking hard. Jenna nearly tumbled off. "What are you doing?" Jenna snapped, annoyed as she got off. When she saw me, she spoke slowly as if explaining. "Emma, don't get the wrong idea. Paul was just being kind, giving me a ride to buy something. Nothing improper happened between us. Please don't spread rumors that would ruin my reputation." I smiled faintly, brushed past her without a glance, and kept walking. Her frantic explanation only made her look ridiculous. Explain to whom? I wasn't even legally married to Paul. If they shared a bed, I wouldn't care. My indifference unsettled Jenna, and she turned to Paul in complaint. "Paul, look at her. Isn't she being terribly rude? For once, Paul didn't echo her. He only stood there, frowning, staring after me as I walked away, the unease in his chest growing heavier. In the past, whenever I saw them together, I would throw a fit or cry miserably, jealousy and pain written all over my face. He had always known how deeply I loved him. But today, in my eyes, there was none of that. Only a calmness he couldn't understand. It left his thoughts in turmoil. What had happened to Emma today? I wrapped up the wound on my forehead and returned home, where I quietly began to pack a few simple belongings. I hid the bundle where it wouldn't be easily noticed. Before leaving the Parker house that afternoon, I had used the same tactic of veiled threats to force Mr. Parker into arranging me a letter of introduction. I needed it if I wanted to go work in another town. At first, he was reluctant, since my departure would make Paul look like a man abandoned by his wife. Even if Paul and I hadn't registered our marriage, we had held a ceremony, and villagers would surely gossip. His reputation would suffer. But I argued, Paul doesn't love me, and he refuses to have children with me. How will your family carry on its line then? Jenna is from the city. She got into college. If not for my engagement to Paul, he would have chased after her long ago. Don't you want a daughter-in-law who's both beautiful and educated? Unlike Mrs. Parker, Mr. Parker cared more for appearances than anything else. When it came to choosing a daughter-in-law, he leaned heavily toward Jenna, the college girl. Who would ever cling to something worse and let go of something better? That was how Mr. Parker thought. So in the end, he didn't argue anymore. If I wanted to leave, then let me leave. After all, once I was gone, the reason for my departure could be spun into whatever story he pleased, and the gossip in the village would bend to his words. So much had happened on the very first day of my rebirth that I was drained. I collapsed onto the bed and fell into a hazy sleep, only to be jolted awake not long after by Paul's loud return. He pushed the door open with a bang. We rarely shared the same bed, so I only frowned, turned over, and continued to sleep. I didn't get up like I used to, rushing to greet him at the door or slipping into the kitchen at night to cook him noodles to warm his stomach. After a while, I sensed a shadow fall over me. Alert, I opened my eyes to see Paul standing by the bed, staring down at me. I met his gaze in silence. He stared back, clearly unsettled by my cold indifference. Finally, he spoke. Today, when you suddenly appeared on the road, you scared Jenna. She fell off the bike and twisted her ankle. Tomorrow, you need to go apologize to her. His words made me want to laugh. I sat up on the bed. Why? Why should I apologize to her? You were the one riding the bike. She got hurt because of you. Yet somehow you pushed the blame onto me. Paul, you're shameless. Do you really take me for a fool you can shove around at will? Is this your way of flirting with her, by making me go bow and scrape? Paul glared at me, anger flaring in his sharp features. He wasn't used to this. I had always adored him, worshipped him, obeyed him. When had he ever endured such defiance from me? His voice rose. Jenna isn't like you. She's frail. She's not rough and thick-skinned. What might seem like a small injury to you is a serious pain for her. Don't you bear some responsibility for today? I'm telling you to apologize for your own good, for your reputation. I laughed bitterly. Oh, right. She's delicate. I'm coarse. You want your wife to go grovel and apologize to another woman. Does that make you feel proud? Do you even know what the villagers say about you two? Do you know how they laugh at me? Reputation. The three of us lost that long ago. I only just realized that if you can't respect yourself, no one else ever will. In my last life, I had listened to him. Time and again, I had bowed my head and apologized to Jenna. And what did I get in return? His indifference, his contempt, the villagers' ridicule. Did I need that? No. So why should I do it again this time? Paul's face darkened with fury, his chiseled features hard with rage. Emma, what's gotten into you today? Your words are vile. Jenna and I share nothing but revolutionary friendship. I've never had improper thoughts about her. Don't slander her and ruin her reputation. I stepped closer, fixing him with a mocking stare. Improper thoughts. Don't you know better than anyone whether you've had them? Do you think the whole village is blind? Do you think they haven't seen you trailing after Jenna like a dog, showering her with gifts, treating her with tenderness while leaving your new wife in the cold? Paul, because of you, I've become a complete laughingstock. If you have even a shred of conscience left, stop trampling on my dignity. You care about Jenna. I care about myself. Force me one more time to apologize to her, and I'll hang myself with a rope. I'll leave a letter and make sure it's read aloud at the broadcast station, telling everyone exactly how you and Jenna carried on in secret, how you disgraced yourselves. Let's see if Jenna still manages to graduate. Let's see how you manage to hold your head up then. Fueled by the bitterness of my past life, I lashed out with words that were heavy and cruel. My eyes burned with hatred, and it made Paul stumble back 2 steps. His face twisted with confusion, disbelief, even a trace of grief. He couldn't understand how I had come to hate him this much, how I could even speak of hanging myself. To him, I had always been that girl who filled her whole heart and eyes with him. Paul suddenly thought of that bicycle. Back then, I had mistaken it as part of my dowry, a gift he'd prepared for me. I had hugged him so tightly, tears of joy streaming down my face, thinking he loved me. Yet later, he never let me ride it even once. Was it jealousy that made me snap like this now? Was it because I saw him with Jenna today and the jealousy broke me? That was the excuse Paul settled on in his mind, a neat reason for our fight. He drew in 2 sharp breaths, didn't argue further, and only muttered, "You're simply unreasonable." Before storming out of the house, when his panicked footsteps faded, I slumped back on the bed, hang myself for a man as rotten as him. Impossible. I had only said it so Paul would understand. I wasn't going to play the pitiful, lovesick fool anymore. Since he cared so much about Jenna, maybe he'd actually fear that if he pushed me too far, I'd ruin her reputation. At least for now, he wouldn't dare harass me again. In the empty house, I suddenly wanted to cry. I reached under the pillow and pulled out the old photographs of Grandma and Dad. My tears soaked through the paper. After they died, no one had ever cherished me again. If that was the case, then I had to love myself twice as much. I swore I would never let anyone bully me again. If heaven truly had spirits, then surely it was Grandma and Dad who had pleaded for me to be reborn. I had to live well now, to live strong. What was this hardship compared to that? I no longer loved Paul. His so-called affection was the cheapest, most disgusting thing in this world. From that day on, Paul never came home. I didn't know where he stayed, and I didn't care to ask. Day by day, I packed my belongings and bought a ticket to leave for another province. There was nothing in this village worth holding me back. I left without regret. The day I departed, the weather was fine. On the road, I ran into several educated youths who were also returning to the city. When they saw me carrying luggage, their expressions showed surprise, but they didn't ask. Some things, if asked outright, only wounded one's pride. Everyone in the village knew how Paul treated me. These young intellectuals had studied like Jenna, but unlike her, they still understood right from wrong. In their eyes, Jenna's behavior was a disgrace, a stain on their identity and conduct as educated youths. One of them, a girl, slipped me some fruit and dry rations. She said once, when she had been late finishing her fieldwork, I had stepped in and helped her complete it without asking for any pay. I didn't even remember such a thing, but I thanked her and accepted her kindness. As the train roared in my ears, I breathed in the air of freedom, tears stinging my eyes. Regret filled me. Regret for ever loving Paul. Regret for never treasuring myself. The world was vast, yet I had let myself live so small, but at least I had been given another chance. Meanwhile, Paul had not gone back to his own home, but instead stayed at his so-called best friend's house. Those days, his mind was in chaos. He even dreamt a wild, absurd dream. In it, he was madly in love with Jenna, following her from the countryside to the city, working himself to the bone to earn her living expenses. During that time, I had given birth to a sweet but sickly daughter, yet he never fulfilled the role of a father. For 10 years straight, he devoted himself to Jenna, hollowing out his family's savings, taking reckless risks to make money for her dreams, even stealing the life-saving money for our daughter's surgery to cover the debts of Jenna's failed research. And in his dream, with his help, Jenna truly did become a brilliant scientist. When Paul thought he could finally be with her, Jenna looked at him with disdain and said, "Be with you? Do you even deserve me?" I am a highly educated scientist, and you're just a country bumpkin. All these years of money you gave me, I'll have my assistant transfer it back to you. Once you've received it, don't ever contact me again." Then she lifted her hand, flashing a diamond ring, and told him she was soon to be engaged to the CEO of a listed company, and that he should stop dreaming about her. Paul stood there dumbfounded, utterly stunned. It was only then that Paul realized he had been played by Jenna his entire life. Furious, he tried to confront her, but her bodyguards pinned him to the ground, beating him mercilessly until in the end, he was beaten to death. In those final seconds as the sun set, he remembered that rainy night when I had begged him to leave the money for our daughter's treatment. Was I, holding our child, just as desperate back then as he felt now? He jolted awake, drenched in cold sweat. Thankfully, it had only been a dream. He admitted to himself that he did like Jenna, but not so far gone that he would sacrifice his own daughter's life. If he and I really had a child one day, and she was as adorable as in the dream, soft and sweet, calling him daddy, wouldn't that be wonderful? That child would be ours, his and mine. A tremor stirred in Paul's chest at the thought. He suddenly remembered the way I had screamed at him that day, hysterical and broken. Had he really treated me too harshly all these years? Glancing at the calendar on the wall, he suddenly realized it was my birthday. His expression shifted, touched by guilt and something unfamiliar. At once, he grabbed some money, planning to head to town and buy me gifts. He imagined bringing back my favorite pastries and candies, along with a new dress, carrying them home openly so the whole village could see. He wanted them to know he did care for me, that I truly was his wife. But as he stepped outside, it was Jenna he found waiting. She bounced toward him playfully. "Paul, can you take me to the department store?" He hesitated, then said apologetically, "Jenna, today is Emma's birthday. I need to be with her." Jenna blinked, then burst out laughing like she'd heard the funniest joke. "Are you kidding me? Emma packed her bags today. She said she's not coming back." Paul's brow furrowed. "What nonsense is that? How could she? We're married, where could she go?" A villager passing by couldn't hold back and added, "It's true, Paul. I saw her leave, but I didn't dare stop her. Honestly, I thought you two were divorced already." "We're not divorced," Paul blurted, panicked, his whole body trembling. But then the realization hit him like a blow. They had never even registered their marriage. All they'd done was hold a simple ceremony in the village. His face turned ashen. He jumped on his bicycle and pedaled out of the village like the wind. Sweat poured down his face by the time he reached the station. His once handsome appearance, now ragged and desperate. He searched frantically among the crowds, calling my name. "Emma, where are you?" But I was nowhere to be found. Hours later, Paul collapsed on the ground, eyes dull and lifeless. I had truly left him. How could I bear to leave? He buried his face in his hands and sobbed, feeling something inside him collapse into emptiness. Meanwhile, I arrived in a new city, where I reconnected early with my old friend from my past life, Jenny. Together, we started a small business. We began with nothing but a street stall, carrying risks on our shoulders, unafraid of hardship or exhaustion, determined to earn money with everything we had. Besides hawking our goods, we had to stay on guard for the police. If caught, the consequences would be severe. More than once, we nearly got arrested. 2 women stumbling through narrow alleys with heavy bags, fleeing in panic. Making money was grueling and exhausting. But when night came and we lit an oil lamp, counting our earnings one by one, our faces couldn't help but glow with joy. I knew I was an ordinary woman, small in this vast world, but I could still fight for my life. I didn't need a man to survive. In fact, only by leaving Paul had I gained a new life. The world was so wide, and I had to see it. This was the road I hadn't chosen in my last life, but this time I was determined to walk it through. I often wondered what kind of outcome my path would bring. Several years later, Jenny and I had finally saved enough to open a small shop. With the customers and reputation we'd built from our street stall days, business flowed steadily. Just as life was thriving for me, Jenny came to me one day with a worried face. "Emma, there's a man standing across the street every day, watching us from morning until night. Should we call the police?" I turned my head and saw him. His clothes were shabby, his tall frame no longer upright. Gone was the pride of the village chief's son. What remained was only defeat and disgrace. When he noticed me, Paul managed a bitter smile. Seeing me like this must make you feel satisfied, doesn't it? In that moment, he remembered everything. That day, after failing to find me at the station, he had ridden his bicycle back to the village in a daze. On the road, he tripped over an obstacle, hit his head on a stone, and in an instant, memories of his past life came flooding back. The dreams had been real. He really had hurt me so deeply. He really had abandoned our daughter, letting her miss her only chance at life, all for the sake of chasing Jenna. He had collapsed on the ground, sobbing, hating himself for his stupidity and blindness. We had grown up together as childhood sweethearts. I had loved him with all my heart for 10 years without regret. And he, this bastard, had thrown me away. Now he understood the weight of his sins and how impossible they were to repay. He knew there could never be another chance for us. He learned which city I had gone to, but shame kept him away. For years he drifted, filthy and aimless, losing all will to work or improve. Jenna, who had once used him for money, saw him reduced to such uselessness and quickly clung to another man instead. Then disaster struck the Parker family. An anonymous letter full of evidence led to Mr. Parker's arrest. Not only had he pocketed the compensation money from my father's death, but he had also abused his position to extort the villagers and kept several widows in the neighboring village as lovers. His corruption and disgrace worked too many to count, and he was taken away. The Parker family collapsed. Everyone in the village despised them. People cursed them openly. Even the dogs barked and disgust when they passed. Paul and his mother fled in shame to another place. With no skills, they lived in bitter poverty. Mrs. Parker, unable to bear such a fall from comfort, suffered a stroke and was left paralyzed. At first, Paul tried to care for her, but over time he could no longer endure her harsh tongue and the crushing hardship. He abandoned her, spending his last bit of money on a train ticket to the city where I lived. He came only to see how I was, hoping that if he knew I lived well, he might finally ease the torment of his guilt. But when he saw me now, confident, radiant, thriving, his heart sank with shame and regret. If only he had not betrayed me. How different it could have been. I read the remorse in his eyes and smiled faintly. Yes, you're pitiful now, but for me, it's still not enough. Unfortunately, you have nothing left to lose, so you're not even worth hating anymore. Of course, the anonymous letter had been mine. How could I let a man like Mr. Parker go unpunished? My father gave up his chance to survive the fire for him, and he repaid us with betrayal, stealing my father's compensation and with his wife, grinding me into the dirt. I had even expected Mrs. Parker would suffer a crippling blow from their downfall and become paralyzed. Perhaps heaven itself had lent me its hand in punishing evil. Everything had fallen into place so smoothly. As for Paul, being discarded early by Jenna had already broken him beyond repair. No matter how he struggled now, he would never rise again. I had no desire to be entangled with him anymore. After mocking him, I turned to go back into the shop when I suddenly heard a thud behind me. Paul had dropped to his knees. His eyes brimmed with tears as he choked out, "Emma, I regret everything. I was blinded, lost in confusion with Jenna, but in my heart, you were always the special one. Otherwise, even if they had put a knife to my neck, I would never have married you. Please forgive me. Let me spend the rest of my life atoning. I swear I will love you with my whole life." He clutched at the hem of my dress, groveling in the dust. Once, I had been the one so lowly before him. Now our positions had reversed. I looked up at the sky, my gaze indifferent. "So what if I was in your heart? You still chased after Jenna. You wanted both, but ended up with nothing from her. And now you come running back to me like some withered patch of grass. Paul, do you really think I'm that easy to fool?" He staggered a few steps, panicked. No, that's not it. Before you left, I truly wanted to be good to you. On your birthday, I even bought you several dresses, but I never got the chance to give them to you. He pulled out packages from his bag. Dresses still wrapped neatly, untouched, even after all these years. He handed them to me, eyes full of desperate hope. I took them in my hand, then without hesitation, threw them on the ground and stomped on them again and again. "I don't want them. Get out. I never want to see you again, you murderer." My daughter would always be the pain I could never heal. If killing weren't against the law, I would have already cut Paul into 1,000 pieces. He stared at the soiled dresses under my feet, the last glimmer in his eyes fading. All right, I'll go. I'll go. Time passed, and Jenny and I grew our business even bigger. We launched our own clothing company, and one day, dressed in our own designs, we attended a ribbon-cutting event. That was where I saw Jenna again. She was working there as a waitress. After her inappropriate relationships with several male classmates, she had been gently forced to withdraw from school. She tried to struggle on, but without someone like Paul, who had once been a fool willing to give her everything, she couldn't pay her way. Naturally, she had to drop out. Across the crowd, our eyes met. In hers, I saw embarrassment and unwillingness, but I was no longer the poor farm girl she once mocked. I had risen while she had fallen. Feeling ashamed, she slipped quietly away. I didn't look after her again. I disliked her. Yes, but the one I hated most was Paul. By the end of that year, my factory expanded back into my old hometown. Many villagers who had moved to the city came to apply for work, astonished by how much I had changed and genuinely happy for me. One woman clasped my hand and reminisced. That old Parker woman got what she deserved. She used to swagger around, cursing everyone just because she was the village chief's wife. Now her husband's in prison, she's paralyzed, and her son doesn't take care of her. She didn't last more than a few months before she died. The stench so bad no one would even rent rooms in their building. As for Paul, no one knew where he had gone. But not long after, I saw him again. He was more haggard than before. His face sallow, so thin he looked like the wind could blow him down. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but when he met my cold, distant gaze, he fell silent and walked away. That was the last time I ever saw him. Later, word reached me. He had been sick with a terminal illness, with no money for treatment. He held out for a while, but in the end he died. Thinking back, perhaps when he came to find me that day, he had wanted to ask me for money for his illness. But when he saw my face, when the news of Paul's death reached me, I almost cried. Not for him, not to mourn him, but because I felt my loved ones in heaven had punished the last person who had ever truly wronged me. Boss Emma, what are you daydreaming about? We've got another big order. My business partner's cheerful voice called from behind me. I turned, and the women working in the factory were already waiting for me to assign tasks. The evening sky was painted in dazzling colors, the wind carrying away the remnants of old pain. I had no time to dwell on the past. Smiling, I answered, coming. The story of Paul and me ended there. But life kept moving forward.